a lot of people are holding on to stories of trauma, and it's a program, and we're rerunning this program, and a lot of times we're not even aware of it. And during the event, I did something where we did a meditation where we use the sound ma, and it is to evoke that mother energy, the ma. And we were actually connecting into the earth, the mother earth, right? This matriarchal force that is feminine, that is setting light energy into matter, because that is the function of the mother, is matter, ma. It's putting the non-physical into physical form. The pa is the pattern. So the code of the sperm goes into the mother, and the mother takes that code and brings it into matter, and that's what we are. We are a life form that is essentially light, that is condensed and slowed down and densified. I know that's not a word, but we are a density of light that is material. And because of our material existence, we are limited by things like time and space. Scurry is saying, this was such an amazing moment in my life. The wave of energy during this hum was very powerful. So if you guys actually just take your hands and put it on your belly and do an inhale and just notice how your body's feeling right now. Just notice how your body's feeling. In the next inhale, we're going to chant ma. So inhale, long ma, ma. Inhale again. One more. And just notice how you feel now. Recognize any thoughts that came up, any feelings in the body, any feelings in the mind, any actions that are pulling on you right now. And we can come out of that. So we can actually chant that ma sound. I would start with 3 minutes. We just did 3 of them, but I would start with 3 minutes and work your way up to 11 minutes. And if that's resonating with you, get up to 30 minutes. You guys want to share anything that came up about what happened? Anything happened to anybody? Chanting ma. So for myself, a couple of things came up. It was learning my mother teaching me things for the first time. Some other people, and I know because I just did this at the event, some other people might actually find trauma. And actually there is a traumatic event. It's like a very, I wouldn't say silly or stupid, but I want to. That's what was coming out of me. It's not that important, but it's something that in my psyche comes up when I think about healing things with my mother. She was very young when she had me, so sometimes she had outbursts of emotions, probably now that I'm older, during the certain lunar phase of her cycle. But sometimes she had outbursts of things, and she used to do things that a 22-year-old would know how to do. So someone said tight deep in the core, like where umbilical cord would be, right? So there's a lot of things that are tied to what our parents taught us, and these are our programming. And there's a lot of things that our parents may have even said to us that could be empowering or it could be even discouraging to what we've done in life. And as adults, what we get to do is recognize those patterns and ask ourselves if this is something that is serving my greatest version of self. And it's never about the person, like could be the mother, right? This is how we kind of started off, but it could be a boss, it could be your father, it could be a sibling, it could be the kids at school, the bullies, it could be a teacher. Sometimes they say something to us and that evokes a program in us, and that determines how we make decisions in life. So if our mother said something discouraging to us, and it could have been out of the goodness of her heart as well. The thing with parents is they want to keep you safe. And so I was just speaking to somebody the other day who was going to make a business move, and of course he told his parents as a 30-year-old, and the parents did their job to keep them safe, right? Like they don't want to take risks. They don't want you to take risks because their agenda is to keep you safe. They're almost like the negative part of our mind. A lot of people wish to turn off the negative part of the mind, but really what we can do is listen to it, because the negative part of the mind is stopping us from crossing the street because we might get hit by a car. So it's just like, no, don't do it. Don't walk into that dark room. Don't take that financial risk. Don't go for it. It's the same sort of voice that our parents have. It's negative, meaning that rather than always taking action, it likes to keep you safe. And you don't get hit by a car if you don't take action. The positive part of our mind is the part of us that has us cross the street, right? Regardless of if we could get hit or not, that's not what it's concerned with. It's not concerned with safety. It's concerned with what's on the other side. And then our experience of life is in the actual act of crossing the street. So there's these polarities that guide us and rule us. They're in our mind and they're in our reality as archetypes of people. Our parents can represent the people in our life that would like to keep us safe, are the negative or the safe part of our mind. And that friend that you go do a bunch of stuff with, maybe when you're younger, it's like the irresponsible stuff that we do, that would be the positive part of our mind that is interested in the outcome, interested in the glory of activities. I was conceived, so I'm reading a comment here. I was conceived without want. Mom had IUD and then didn't keep me safe as a child. So definitely something there. So if you guys have ever done any hypnosis or past life regression, you can actually go back to the point of your conception, to the point even when your mother discovered that she was pregnant. And you can feel into that space. And eventually you can even overwrite that program. It's okay to acknowledge it, and that program is deep in our core. It's the moment that your mother found out that she was pregnant with you is almost like the accumulation of everything non-physical, and then it like brings it into this reality. And the color of that tone of emotional frequency is the origin of your physical life here within this lifetime. It was when your mother discovered that you're growing inside of her, and all of the thoughts and the emotions that she had about you in that moment was going to carry through all of pregnancy. And as this person was saying, she was on an IUD, didn't want him. And so then it carried into the tone of the relationship of childhood. And we can still be carrying that with us. So if you guys just intuitively, I'm not going to go into a regression, but you can ask yourself questions like, where was my mother at the day that she found out she was pregnant with me? And we could just be imagining this. Yes, give yourself the flexibility and the grace to not be concerned with whether this is actually true or not. That's not the point of it. We don't actually have to be accurate here because there's a program within us, and that's what we're accessing. We're uncovering that program, we're cracking it open so that we can determine if we would like to make a shift in here. And so if you go into the point where the news is delivered that my mother is pregnant with me, where is she located? And it doesn't have to be the exact moment. It can be later on that day. Where do you find yourself in correlation to that moment? For me, she's sitting underneath a tree. And what is she feeling? What thoughts are going through her mind? And how did that impact your childhood? Can you make connection? Can you find those neural connections, those memories, the programs that you may be running now because of how she felt in this moment? This could be positive, this could be negative. This could be something that you wouldn't even classify as positive or negative. But just follow this. And notice where you feel this in your body as you're imagining, as you're embodying these moments. And wherever you're feeling it in your body, smile there. See if you can send light there. Can you amplify this area within your body or within your aura, within your memories? Can you amplify this with light, with love? So that you can color it in with the greatest expression of everything that there is to be. And as you're doing this, as you're filling yourself up with light and love within your body, let that light travel back in your memories to your mother. And let the love consume that image, that memory, that reality. Now replay the news. Replay the news of pregnancy, the moment of awareness of your existence. Replay that from this state of light and love. And let these feelings travel back up through your life, through your childhood. Coloring in your entire existence up until this moment. Take a breath into this, smiling energy, and let it go. 2 more breaths into this just to seal everything that we're experiencing. 1 more inhale. Pause a little bit before you exhale, but you're not holding the inhale. It's slowing down. And then go ahead and exhale. And we can open our eyes if you have them closed. Well, this took a tangent. If you guys want to share what you experienced, that would be great. There's so much we can do with our psyche. There's so much. Our psyche, so I used to own gyms, so I look at our psyche from a standpoint of that perspective where we can practice, we can work on skills, we can mold our physical body within a gym, within a physical fitness practice. It doesn't have to be in a gym, right? It could be on a yoga mat. It can be doing fascial maneuvers. It can be just getting to know yourself. And we can mold ourselves through physical forcing. And there's other ways to mold ourselves, which I'll get to in a second. But the more that we can practice loving, joyful energy and let that percolate into our programming, doing exercises like we just did, whether we actually went back and changed reality or not doesn't matter. So if we can give ourselves flexibility to sidestep that question of what we're actually doing and is it true or not, because it doesn't necessarily matter as much as the program that's running within you, because the moments in our history are just running on automatic. And it's not until we recognize and choose a different program that anything changes. I'm trying to think of something that was a shift, like a paradigm shift, that would give you an example of this. But the only thing that's coming to mind is if you're in a dark room and there's a lot of fear which is like the fear is the response to anxiety. So anxiety are the feelings that something's not safe. And then fear is what those feelings create within the body. It's the shivering, it's the tensing of the muscles. And so that's what being fearful is. And so if you're in a room and you're fearing because of the anxiety of there being a snake in the corner, and this is, I forget who said this, but this is an example that somebody else came up with. But if you're in a dark room and there's a snake in the corner, you're going to be running these programs. And if somebody turns on the light for just 1 second and then turns it off and you see that it's not a snake, it's just a coiled piece of rope, all of a sudden, all of this fear and anxiety and these programmings of needing to be safe are going to immediately start to dissipate. It's going to take a while before it actually gets out of your body and when you work through it. However, there was never a snake. And now that you realize it's a rope, whether it's a snake or a rope, it doesn't matter. It's just how you're feeling about it. Because there's some people that also aren't afraid of snakes. There's some people that could have had your exact same childhood and thrived in it. There's some people that could have had your exact same childhood that you're thriving in that did very, very bad. So it's up to us to make that decision. Tehran, I don't know if I'm saying that right, says, that was amazing. I ended up with a bright fuchsia light and det it to my mom. Through my mom and sons her whole body. Sounds like there's a lot of typos in here. Then as that light surrounded her whole body, I re-gave her the news she was pregnant. So for me, I'll just share my experience. There was, I shared earlier, my parents were young. So this is all an assumption. Well, there's a little bit of stories that I know about my parents, but my mom wasn't going to tell my dad that she was pregnant. And my dad was planning on moving out of state, and so she was just going to let him do it. And so I have this color and this tone of that going on in, like, when she receives the news, like I said, underneath the tree. And when I brought myself back into the moment with the light and the love, then there's a completely different experience of finding out that she's pregnant with me. And there's excitement and smiles and open-heartedness. And that, bringing that through my entire childhood to now, it really feels like I could feel energy going through my body. And where I was feeling it before was solar plexus is how I was feeling the first wave through, which is crazy because I got tested for, there's a company that used to be called Paradigm. They just closed, actually. It was the descendant of Alexander Graham Bell had this company and developed this technology. And they did testing on me to discover where I'm weak at in terms of the light spectrum. And the color that they chose and gave me was yellow, and that's solar plexus energy. So I just remember that right now, but it's interesting that that's where I felt almost like a hole when I was imagining, like, kind of like not wanting to tell my father because of embarrassment and shame. And then where I was feeling the light fill up my body was from the below the heart up and out. This all seems like weird woo-woo stuff. I'm not arguing it's not. But back to the gym analogy, we can practice telling ourselves in our head like how dumb everything is and how stupid everybody else is and judging things. Not saying that everybody does this, but I do know that in my life I have done that stuff. For most of my life I used to sit in rooms and just look around at everybody and just think, like, what if everybody turned on me? Could I could I kill everybody in this room with my bare hands? What weapons would I use if this happened to them? This is what I used to think about as a 19-year-old sitting in a cafeteria in college, just like a random example of that. I don't know why. It's just like, what if everybody turned on me? If I get really stressed in my life, I have dreams of every single person in the world against me, chasing me. And so that's somewhere in my psyche. And we can go in and we can explore these shadows, these dark rooms in our psyche, and turn the lights on within them and see that what may have actually been a literal snake back then, it doesn't serve me now to keep that snake trapped in this room within the psyche. So we can go back and we can neutralize these programs. And that's how it literally works. These programs are frequencies that are running in our psyche. And do you guys know noise canceling headphones? I've used this example a lot if you paid attention to me. Noise canceling headphones, they're not just blocking your ears from the sound. A noise canceling headphone has a resonator. It's not necessarily a speaker, but it's detecting the sound that's coming into your ear, and it's blasting out the opposite frequency so that in your eardrum, you don't hear anything. So it's just matching the frequency. And we can do that within our psyche. Earthquake dampeners do the same thing. There's these giant puck-shaped things that are within buildings, and when an earthquake is shaking the ground, the dampener basically matches that frequency, and it absorbs the earthquake so that the building can remain relatively solid. And so it's, once again, not up to anybody in our reality to do this for us. It's up to us to go in, switch on those lights. Like, we're the one that switches on the light. So somebody said, how did that shift? You're the opposite of that now. Well, I played hockey, and when I played hockey, so we're talking about like, how did it shift between me thinking about like everybody's against me? I got a lot of my aggression and rage out of me. I played hockey. I was able to fight every single weekend, sometimes multiple times a game. And hockey, back then, I don't know how it is now. I don't really watch the sport, but I see people saying that it's kind of got sissified. But like a fighting is a 5-minute penalty, and the other person you're fighting also gets a 5-minute penalty. So it doesn't do anything to penalize your team unless you win. Well, unless you lose, then it decreases the morale of your team. But if you win, everybody in your team is amped up. So fighting is essentially encouraged in hockey as a way to keep the other team in check, and it boosts the morale of your team. If you're tied 2-2 and there's a fight and you just absolutely destroy the other guy, that gives your team more confidence. So it's actually encouraged, and it was just the perfect sport for me to get out all of the victimness of being bullied. I was also bullied because I was a very, very small person. I didn't hit puberty till I was 19, but once I did, I was now the size of all of these metaphorical bullies, the guys that used to pick on me in middle school and high school. They weren't in front of me, but I was playing a sport where fighting was just accepted, and I was celebrated for it. So the sport of hockey for me was about hurting people and really just working through that. And then I eventually owned CrossFit gyms. I just went straight into competing with that, stood on lots of podiums, in front of rooms of 200 other men that work out every single day, and I was basically crowned the fittest of them all. And so I got a lot of this competing nature out of me, and to the point where I didn't need it anymore. And I consider myself blessed to have been able to work through all of that competitive, am I good enough energy? Because now that's not a question, it's not interesting for me to work through, and I can help others because I can recognize what they're going through, and there's more efficient ways to work through your anger than like finding other people to beat up. Even though joining a boxing gym and getting your anger and aggression out in that way can be helpful, there is also just going to the root of everything and going there with light, with forgiveness, with gratitude even. I had an amazing life because I was driven to defeat and conquer and prove myself. Like my life was very fun and amazing as a result of the trauma that evoked me into that journey. And so going back, just like we went back to the mother, going back to the bullies, going back to the people that said that mean thing, even going back to the time that you were the bully or that you were on the reverse end and coloring that all in, overriding the shame, overriding the anger, overriding all of those emotions that aren't serving you now. And it may be something that you can do easily because you're ready to get rid of it, or it might be something that actually is like very touchy for you. Just reading more comments here to catch myself up. They no longer allow the same aggression in hockey, I'm sure. Yeah, literally, when I played hockey, you could just go like do whatever you would like. And as a 17, 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old male, when you perceptively feel like the other team is trying to hurt you, all you care about is hurting them first. And there's a lot of stuff that we used to do that is like ridiculous when I think about like that was the playground that I played in every single day of my life since I was 3 years old. Thanks for going on this tangent from what you intended for today. Gratitude. I needed to hear this exercise. Yeah, tangents are for a purpose. I just felt like going there, and I'm making it work. So back to what we've been doing. We did this mother exercise. I really encourage you guys to go into the traumas of your aggressors, of the people that took advantage of you. And I'm talking everything, because you're still carrying around that snake within you, within your psyche, and that's debilitating you. It's paralyzing you. That fear is coursing through your entire existence, even things that you don't even realize. It's affecting you. I've essentially been studying and researching psychology for 25 years. I started going to university. I have a degree in psychology when I was 17 years old, and I'm like about to be 42. So is that 25 years? Yeah, that's 25-ish years. And the thing that's always true is that it always has to do with you. You're the control mechanism. Nobody else is going to be able to save you, including the person that was the one that blessed you with this trauma. What is life without the challenges? This is why we came here, and we can even talk about multiple lifetimes. It's really hard to accept, and I'm not going to go into this too much, but it's really hard to accept the traumas of our life if we feel like this is the only one that we have. It's really easy to kind of look at the stain on our life and just ruminate on it and wish it wasn't there, and why me, ourself, if we feel like this is the only life that we have. And that YOLO thing is, you only live once, for those of you guys. YOLO, you only live once. It's the same message perpetuated in religion, well, some religions, I should say. I should just actually just say Christianity. That this is a big test and we only go through it once. And actually, original Christianity, if you go back to the teachings of Yeshua, which later became Jesus, or Joshua, Yahweh, if you actually take a breath, it actually, Yahweh is a sound that you don't close your lips or touch your teeth for. Most consonants, you're shaping the vowel sound, which is essentially the breath. You're shaping the breath, and breath etymologically, spirit means breath from an etymological sense, which is more profound, more originating than a dictionary sense. So the etymology of spirit is breath. So spirit is breath, and Yahweh is, it's the sound of breath. Anyways, back to Jesus. Jesus spoke of reincarnation, and he spoke of it as hell. Even hell is defined differently in, like, if you go beyond the King James version of the Bible and beyond the Council of Nicaea, which happened like in the first 100 years AD, and they determined what was going to make it into the final teachings of Christianity. You go beyond those, there's regular talk of reincarnation, and that we burn off the karma, much like a dumpster fire. They used to just light their garbage on fire. And so this idea of karma turned into hell. Hell was never an eternal place where you just go for all of eternity. It was essentially the garbage that we carry with us, and we get to work through it. And some of the karma that we're working through are these events that we are blessed to experience as trauma, as a way for us to grow as people, to learn lessons, to recognize what being on the short end of the stick feels like, because sometimes we're on the long end of the stick. We can't always learn from being the one that gets everything. There's a lot that we actually learn from going through negative experiences. What sound can we do this exercise with for issues with colleagues or boss versus the mother we just did? Issues with colleagues or boss. I mean, those are two different things. Colleagues are essentially your students, your brothers and sisters, your siblings. They're your equals. And a boss is more like a father pattern. And guys, if you have issues with your boss, it's up to you to console those, to rectify, to strengthen that. Because if you don't, the next interview you take with the next job, you resonate with your traumas. Have you ever read a book and you can just, the same kind of theme comes up from the author, and you're like, I'm reading a book. like this person has problems with relationships because it keeps on coming up. The words that you use are going to color in the tone that you have had problems with your boss, which is probably the same problems you had with your mother or your father or your childhood coach. And Thing is, there's assholes in this reality. There are. And that's beautiful. It gives context so that others can recognize your light. And so if you are blessed with an experience where you're having to deal with one, where's the work? What's the practice? Why are you there? If you don't recognize that, then you're going to continue in this loop, in this practice, not even understanding what the lesson is. And so figure it out. Why are you there? What is the purpose of this? Someone said, Erica said, darn, I missed the exercise. It's okay. This will be on replay. You smell resonate with your traumas. You do. You do. You don't realize it because they're yours. They're your program. You cannot, if there's a program that's running, like let's say every time you talk to somebody, you start complaining about the government, that's a trauma. And everyone around you can see it. And you just think that it's normal to do that. You don't realize that not everybody is there with you. And you're like, well, they just don't get it. No, it doesn't mean that they're for the government. That could be one option. But another option is that they actually know more than you about everything that you're complaining about. They're just beyond complaining. And they're still recognizing that they're in this game and they're playing it. And so rather than just pointing fingers, they're doing something about it. And then we got you. And I'm not saying everyone's like this. I'm just putting us into the perspective of this person because we may be like this with the government thing. We may be like this with other things. But then we got you who's complaining and trying to convince everybody that they should be on this level of pointing the fingers. You're trying to do this to people that have already pointed the fingers in their life and they're not interested in doing that anymore. And then you just feel like you got to do it more because you're the only one doing it. We all can go through that phase. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I'm just saying be aware. And we're all expanding our awareness of self. We all can. Even right now, if I'm like thinking like, why am I even saying this stuff that I'm saying? Who am I to say this? Am I saying this from a place of service? Does this serve the people that are listening to me right now? Or is this serving myself? Where is this message coming from? Is it coming from the ether? Is it coming from inside me, my egoic self? All right. Ben said, I don't know if it's 2018, Ben said, it's like you planned this entire life for me. That's something I notice when I go places. It's like the lesson is always for me. It's always for you, no matter what. Whoever's in front of you is there for a reason. They're there for a reason, and you are there for a reason for them. There's like a perfect union in every moment. So everybody that you interact with is so important to your life, and you are so important to their life. It's a big deal. Pay attention. Pay attention. Attention is the new currency. Our nervous system feels drawn to them. I think that might be talking about trauma. Totally, I started to identify where I needed to change my reality by what I become defensive towards. Yes. So those triggers. Gary and Jason from Human Garage, I believe, were calling them clues. And they're little hints, like, hey, pay attention to me. It's almost like pain in our body. A pain in our body is essentially a cell that's praying to the higher mechanism that's organizing all of the cells. And it's saying, like, pay attention to me, give me attention, give me focus, give me intention. And so then we can shift our activity so that that cell can be relieved. And that's what a pain in our body is. A pain in our psyche, something that's triggering us emotionally is the same thing. It's one of these dark rooms with a snake in our reality that's saying, knock, 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 higher, grander self. Turn the light on. Release me from this snake. A painful human is the same thing. If we are in pain and we intend up to our grander self. That's what prayer is. And we harmonize with a better way. And make sure when you do that, you're not just pointing out what's wrong. That's the issue with just pointing out what's wrong, is that that's all you're focused on. That's what your intention is. And you gravitate towards that and you find proof of why it's wrong, which then solidifies it within your reality. If you're afraid of spiders, they're going to be everywhere in your house. What you resist persists is the analogy. Why do I find myself thinking about a person who I had a relationship long ago over and over, even though it's been over and we are both married? Interesting question. It's because your neurology is wired to bring them up. It's like when you walk into a room and you just know where to like switch on the light switch. Like you know exactly, like stepped, switch, light on. There's all of these things that are tied to the people in our life that we had strong ties with. And so when we see certain things or we think about certain things, they're tied neurologically to this person. And that's where practices like cutting ties, severing connections. You can even have ceremonies where you're releasing yourself of the attachments energetically. It's not even just neurologically. There's energetic attachments to them. And you can cut these attachments and release them. And even if you just think about this person right now, and everybody that's listening, there's probably a person that you've been holding on to. It doesn't really serve your current job, your current relationship to have them connected to your heart. Even though they were there, they served a purpose, right? So in things like this, we're not necessarily negating it. We're just saying that was kindergarten, that was first grade, that was necessary for me to get to where I am now. But I don't necessarily need to continue going through that cycle of first grade. I am aware that happened or is happening now in another reality, and it served me now, but I don't need to be there anymore. And so with these people that we would like to release attachments to, we can find that cord in our heart, in our throat, in our mind, wherever it is, and we can physically, selenite is a tool that people use. They use a selenite wand, or if you go to any crystal store, there's selenite swords that you can get. And I wonder if I just coughed right there for for a reason. But all right, I guess I'll sever this connection right here. So we can sever. We can literally dig out and release. And I'm just doing this intuitively, guys. I coughed and I actually then just felt something from a person I was thinking about. And send it away with gratitude. And recognize the openness that you feel, because it's with the space that we create within ourselves that we're able to recreate and join membership with what is now serving us. And there's a whole bunch of other things that we can talk about with breakups, but that's not the point of this. I think we're getting to the end, but let me just read through some of these comments. That's one thing that'll help. Someone gave me a visual of pulling the plug and disconnecting. Exactly. Turn that light off. Clear that space. Cut the cord. So awesome. All right, everybody. This has been good. If you guys missed the first part, with Ma and the exercise, definitely go back and watch the recording. I'm just ending the stream. Bye.